In the far edge of the Milky Way, where stars looked dim and cold, there floated a lonely outpost called Listening Station E9. It was built by humans many years ago, a small metal island drifting in endless night. Its job was simple: to listen. The machines inside the station never stopped scanning for radio waves, beacons, or hidden whispers from deep space. Most of the time, they caught only silence. But one day, the silence broke. A weak, broken signal began to play through the receivers. It was faint, full of static and strange sounds, almost like a voice, but not quite human. The station's computer flagged it as unknown transmission source. The message repeated again and again, as if trying not to be forgotten. Commander Alara Holt, Chief Communication Officer of the Terran Exploration Network, was the first to hear it. She sat in the dim light of her control room, watching endless lines of data scroll across her screen. She had worked in space for 15 years and nothing surprised her anymore, until now. Her fingers moved quickly over the console as she adjusted the filters and cleaned the signal. At first it was only noise. Then slowly a pattern began to appear. It was rhythmic, like speech. A voice spoke through the static, soft, trembling, almost pleading. "Help. Dying, please. Anyone, help." Alara froze. She replayed the section again and again, trying to be sure. The language wasn't Terran, but the emotion behind it was clear. It was a cry for help. She leaned closer, her heart beating faster. "Computer, locate the source of this signal," she ordered. The machine replied in its calm, robotic tone. "Signal origin, Sector K947, region known as the Krill Expanse." Alara frowned. The Krill Expanse. That was a place even seasoned captains avoided. The records described it as a dark and empty zone, filled with strange gravitational fields and dead planets. No ship had ever returned from there. Still, she couldn't ignore the message. Later that day, she presented her findings to the High Command Council in a large holographic chamber orbiting Earth. Around her, senior officers and scientists listened as the transmission played again, the ghostly voice echoing through the air. When it ended, silence filled the room. Admiral Ryan Dorn, a stern man with silver hair, leaned forward. "You believe this signal is genuine?" "Yes, sir," Alara said firmly. "The modulation shows signs of intelligent structure. Someone or something is calling for help. They've been trapped for a long time." The Admiral crossed his arms. "Or it's a trap. You know how many false distress signals we've intercepted from the outer regions. Pirates, rogue AI networks, even old war drones." Alara shook her head. "I don't think this is one of those. The signal's power signature is too old. It matches technology at least 3,000 years ahead of our, and yet, it sounds desperate, not hostile." The council members exchanged looks. Most of them seemed uninterested. The Krill Expanse was outside their usual patrol routes, and few wanted to send ships into unknown danger. Finally, the council chairwoman spoke. "Commander Holt, are you volunteering to investigate this personally?" Alara hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am. If we ignore this, we might be turning our backs on a civilization in need." The chairwoman sighed softly. "Very well. You may take one vessel on the TSV Horizon, but keep your distance. If there is any sign of danger, you will return immediately." "Yes, ma'am," Alara replied. The meeting ended. As Alara walked out, she caught Admiral Dorn's gaze. His expression was unreadable. "Be careful, Commander," he said quietly. "Sometimes the universe sends signals that were never meant to be heard." The TSV Horizon was a medium-class research ship, small, fast, and built for exploration. It carried a crew of 40, scientists and engineers who trusted Alara completely. As the ship left the orbiting dock, Earth slowly faded behind them, a shining blue world turning into a bright star. The Horizon jumped into quantum drift, its engines bending light as it traveled across vast distances. Inside the control room, Alara stood before the main viewport, watching the stars slide by like silver dust. Her second officer, Lieutenant Aaron Kale, joined her. "You really think this signal is from someone alive?" he asked. Alara nodded slowly. "I don't know, Aaron, but if there's even a small chance, we have to find out." He smiled faintly. "You sound like the old explorers from the Age of Expansion. They used to say the same thing before jumping into unknown systems." Alara chuckled softly. "Maybe some things never change." After 3 days of travel, the Horizon entered the Krill Expanse. The moment they crossed the boundary, every sensor on the ship began to flicker. Space here was strange, filled with static waves, dark energy storms, and faint echoes of gravity. The stars looked blurred, as if wrapped in fog. Navigation systems are struggling, the pilot reported. It's like the whole region is bending light differently. Ilara nodded. Stay on course. Follow the signal. Hours passed and the signal grew stronger. It guided them toward a small dying sun surrounded by 3 shattered planets. Only one of them still showed signs of atmosphere. A dark green world covered with broken landmasses and endless dust storms. That's our source, Ilara said. Prepare descent scans. The computers mapped the surface, revealing huge ruins, tall spires and collapsed cities buried in sand. The architecture looked old, far older than any human design. The signal source came from deep inside one of those ruins. We've found it, said Aaron. Coordinates locked. As the horizon entered orbit, Ilara looked at the data on her screen. The transmission was still repeating. But now, as they neared, another layer of the message became clear. It wasn't just a plea for help. It contained coordinates, and beneath them a warning written in broken language fragments. Do not awaken. Buried silence. Danger sleeps below. Ilara frowned. The tone of her voice dropped. That doesn't sound like just a distress call anymore. Aaron looked uneasy. Maybe it's 2 signals mixed together. One old, one new. Maybe, Ilara said softly. But whatever it is, we'll find out soon. She ordered a scanning drone to descend into the atmosphere. As it entered, lightning storms flashed across the planet, lighting up the ruined cities. The drone transmitted images, massive structures built of crystal and metal, cracked and silent, covered with strange symbols. Then, for a brief second, something moved across the screen. A figure, small and pale, standing among the ruins, staring directly into the drone's camera. The crew gasped. Ilara leaned closer, heart pounding. Is that someone alive? Before they could analyze further, the drone's signal cut out, replaced by static. That night, the horizon drifted in orbit, silent except for the hum of its engines. Ilara sat alone in her cabin, staring at the repeating signal on her tablet. She played it again. The voice was faint, trembling. She couldn't understand the words, but somehow she could feel the emotion behind them. Fear, loneliness, hope. She whispered to herself, "Who are you?" Then suddenly the tablet flickered. The static cleared, and for the first time a clear image appeared. A glowing symbol, circular with 3 lines running through it. She didn't recognize it, but it looked deliberate, almost like a seal. At the same moment, the ship's computer spoke. Commander Holt, we are receiving a secondary transmission. Source unknown. Put it on screen, Ilara said. The monitor filled with strange patterns of light. Then, one by one, the symbols rearranged into a single message in English. We are not alone. Help us before it returns. Ilara stared at the message in silence. Whoever they were still out there, waiting, afraid, and hoping that the Deathworlders would answer. Outside the ship, the stars of the Krill expanse shimmered faintly, as if the darkness itself was watching, and far away, deep in subspace, something stirred. Something ancient. Something that had waited for a long, long time. The horizon had just awakened the silence of a forgotten world. The planet below the horizon was silent and cold, wrapped in a greenish haze that shimmered with dust and electricity. The crew stood on the bridge, watching through the wide glass viewport as they descended into the thick clouds. Commander Ilara Holt felt her chest tighten. The sight of a dying world always made her uneasy. Broken towers rose from the fog like the bones of forgotten giants, their tips glowing faintly as the lightning storms flashed across the sky. Atmosphere unstable, reported Lieutenant Aaron Kale, scanning the console. Pressure is low, but breathable with filters. Radiation is minimal, Ilara nodded. We'll take a small team. The signal source is inside that ruin cluster. Prepare the landing craft. The crew moved quickly. The ship's hangar doors opened and a small shuttle glided out, glowing softly against the storm clouds. As they descended, the sound of static filled their helmets, faint whispers that didn't belong to the wind. Picking up old transmissions, said Engineer Lyra Chen, adjusting her scanner. They're overlapping the distress signal. Looks like fragments of old data. Ilara looked out the window, watching the ruins grow larger. Maybe memories, she said quietly. Echoes of a civilization that wanted to be remembered. The shuttle touched down on a wide stone platform covered in dust. Around them stood tall spires of glass-like material. Some cracked, others bent as if time itself had melted them. Strange symbols ran across the ground, glowing faintly when the humans stepped closer, as if recognizing new life after endless years of silence. The air was still, but heavy with something invisible, a feeling that the planet itself was watching them. "Commander," Aaron said softly, pointing ahead. Movement. From behind a half-collapsed archway, figures slowly appeared, tall and slender, their skin pale silver, their eyes glowing faintly blue. They moved carefully, like shadows afraid of the light. The humans froze. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then one of the figures raised a thin hand, its voice trembling but clear. "You are not of this world." Alara stepped forward and lowered her weapon. "We received your distress signal," she said gently. "We're here to help." The being hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You heard us. After so long." Alara smiled faintly. "Who are you?" The being looked up at the stormy sky. "We are the Alanth, what remains of them. Once we built cities that reached the clouds. Now, only a few of us remain." They led the humans into the ruins through long hallways filled with broken lights and half-functioning machines. Ancient murals covered the walls, showing tall crystal towers and winged creatures that might have once flown among them. Inside a large dome-shaped chamber, Alara saw what looked like a small community, maybe 20 Alanth, gathered around glowing orbs that provided warmth and light. Their clothes were worn, their movements weak. An elder stepped forward, his eyes dim but kind. "You have come from the stars," he said in a slow, melodic tone. "For centuries we have called, though we knew no one would answer." Alara bowed her head slightly. "I am Commander Alara Holt of the Terran Exploration Network. We didn't know your world still had life. We thought this region was empty." The elder nodded. "Empty, yes, because it was made so. The Vorkal Dominion came here long ago. They feared our knowledge. They broke our cities and buried our voices. We survived only by hiding beneath the surface." The name made Alara pause. "The Vorkal Dominion," she repeated. "I've read that name in old records. They disappeared thousands of years ago." The elder gave a sad smile. "They never disappear. They sleep. They always sleep until someone wakes them." His words made the air feel colder. The Alanth guided the humans to an underground chamber filled with strange devices, large metal rings connected by crystal beams. Some still glowed faintly, others were broken. Engineer Lyra studied the machines in awe. "These are communication amplifiers," she whispered, "but they're unlike anything I've ever seen. They use subspace harmonics, not regular signals." Alara ran her hand along one of the crystal pillars. It vibrated softly as if alive. "So this is where your distress call came from?" The elder nodded. "Yes, we tried to reach the stars again. But every time we sent a signal, something blocked it. An invisible wall. It kept us trapped here." Aaron frowned. "A signal jammer that covers an entire planet?" "No," the elder said slowly. "It covers the whole region. The Krill Expanse is a prison, built not for us, but for whatever the Vorkal left behind." The humans exchanged uneasy glances. Alara turned to Lyra. "Can we disable it?" Lyra hesitated. "Maybe. But if it's as big as they say, shutting it down could trigger something. A fail-safe, a defense system, or worse." Alara looked around at the tired faces of the Alanth, then said firmly, "We can't leave them trapped here. If this field stays active, no rescue ships can reach them. We'll find a way to disable it safely." The elder bowed his head. "You would do this for us?" "Yes," Alara said softly. "No one deserves to vanish into silence." For the next 2 days, the humans and Alanth worked together, repairing the ancient machines. The Horizons drone scanned deep beneath the planet's crust, tracing the source of the energy field. It came from a single enormous structure buried miles below, a massive generator built around a glowing core. Lyra stared at the readings. "This thing isn't just blocking signals. It's absorbing them, feeding on energy from every transmission. It's almost like it doesn't want to be found." Alara stood beside her. "Can we stop it?" "We can try," Lyra replied. "If we reverse the harmonics, it might shut down the field, but it'll release a huge subspace pulse. Every listening station in the galaxy will detect it, Ilara thought for a moment. Then they'll know we're here. The team set up the equipment and began the process. The Alenth gathered around, whispering softly in their melodic language as if praying. "Ready, Commander," said Lyra. "On your mark." Ilara nodded. "Do it." Lyra pressed the final switch. The ground trembled. The crystal pillars flared bright white, and a deep hum filled the chamber. The noise grew louder, vibrating through the floor and walls. The air shimmered as if reality itself was bending. Then, silence. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. The light faded. The machines went still. "Did it work?" Aaron asked. Lyra looked at her readings, eyes wide. "Yes, the suppression field is gone. We're free." Cheers echoed through the chamber. The Alenth looked at the sky through the cracks above. Seeing stars they hadn't seen in generations, some began to weep softly, overwhelmed by the sight. Ilara smiled. "You're free now. The universe can hear you again." But before anyone could celebrate further, the ground shook once more. Harder this time. The crystals turned red, glowing like embers. The entire structure trembled as alarms flashed on the Horizon systems. "Commander!" Lyra shouted. "The generator isn't shutting down, it's awakening. There's another layer beneath it, something active." Ilara grabbed the communicator. "Horizon, report!" The pilot's voice came through, panicked. "We're picking up a massive energy spike beneath the surface. It's spreading across the system, like a beacon." A cold realization struck Ilara. The jammer wasn't just blocking communication, it was containing something. By turning it off, they had released its signal into the stars. She looked at the Elder. "What did we wake up?" The old Alenth's eyes filled with fear. "The Watchers," he whispered. "The ones who destroyed us. You have told them we are alive, in orbit." The Horizon scanners detected dozens of faint energy traces rising from beneath the planet. Old satellites, drones, and massive objects buried for centuries now powering up. Then, across the void of space, a shockwave rippled. A subspace pulse bright enough to be seen across star systems. On distant worlds, sensors lit up. In the Sol system, deep inside a Terran command bunker, old systems came online. Warning lights flashed across screens. A technician stared at the readings in disbelief. "Admiral, we're detecting a signal from the Krill expanse. It matches ancient Deathworlder protocols." The Admiral turned slowly toward the display, his expression hardening. "Prepare the fleet," he said. "Someone just called for help." Back on the dying planet, Ilara stood at the edge of the ruins, watching the sky. The stars seemed to flicker, as if answering. She didn't know it yet, but the Deathworlder fleet had already begun to move. And far above, in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, other eyes had awakened too. The silence of the expanse was over. In the heart of the Sol system, Earth floated calmly beneath its protective defense grid. For years, the planet had known peace. The great wars of the past were memories written in old records, and the once terrifying Deathworlder fleet rested in orbiting docks, silent and waiting. That silence ended the moment the signal arrived. At first, the alert seemed like a system glitch, but when the technicians traced the pattern, every command center across the Terran defense network came alive. A single code repeated across frequencies that had been unused for centuries. The same encryption used during the Deathworlder wars, a time when humanity fought not for power but for survival. In the central command hall, bright lights flashed across the walls as officers rushed to their stations. The holographic map showed a red pulse spreading from the edge of the galaxy, from the Krill expanse. Admiral Terran Voss, Supreme Commander of the Terran Fleet, stepped forward. His uniform was simple, his face calm but sharp. Years of experience had carved lines of wisdom rather than age into his features. "What do we have?" he asked. A young officer replied quickly. "Admiral, the signal matches the Omega Protocol. It's ancient, originated from listening station E9. It's broadcasting from a human vessel inside the Krill expanse." Voss's eyes narrowed slightly. "A human ship? In that region?" "Yes, sir." Identification confirmed. TSV Horizon, commanded by Ilara Holt. The transmission sequence includes her personal code. For a moment, the room fell silent. Everyone knew the name Ilara Holt, a brave explorer known for chasing the unknown. "Put it on screen," Voss ordered. The message appeared. Static, broken light, and the faint echo of words. Help, survivors found, system awakening. We need support. Then the image cut off. Voss stood still for several seconds. The last time the Omega Protocol had been triggered, humanity had been on the brink of destruction. The Deathworlder fleet had saved them then. Fleets of enormous ships forged in desperation, crewed by the toughest minds and hearts of Earth. He looked at the officers around him. Signal every dock. Reactivate the fleet. I want the Vigilant, Hammerfall, Aurora, and Eden's Flame ready for launch within 24 hours. The hall filled with energy. Commands echoed through the air as technicians and pilots hurried to their stations. Dormant engines hummed awake, and old warships that had rested in silence began to glow with life once more. On the orbiting dockyards above Mars, engineers gathered near the TSS Vigilant, a massive flagship shaped like a silver arrowhead. Its hull was marked by scars from battles long past, each one polished but never erased. Captain Ray Draven, commander of the Vigilant, stood at the viewing deck as the ship's systems came online. It feels strange to wake the old lady again, he said quietly. Beside him, Chief Engineer Mira Solon smiled faintly. She's been sleeping too long. Maybe it's time she sees the stars again. Draven looked out toward the horizon where Earth glowed softly below. Do you believe it, Mira? That there's someone out there calling for us after all these years? I believe Commander Holt wouldn't ask for help unless the need was real, she replied. And if she's trapped in that region, we owe her our best. Back on Earth, Admiral Voss addressed the Terran Council through a live holographic session. The council members appeared around him as glowing figures, representatives from colonies, trade guilds, and research worlds. Admiral, said one counselor sharply, you're proposing to deploy the Deathworlder fleet beyond Terran space for the first time in 2 centuries. That fleet was built for defense, not exploration. Voss nodded calmly. True, but this is not an invasion. It's a rescue. A Terran vessel has sent a distress call from the Krill Expanse, an area long marked as restricted. The crew has encountered survivors from an extinct race. Their lives and perhaps their discoveries are at stake. Another counselor leaned forward. You think this could be a trap? Voss's eyes were steady. Perhaps, but if we ignore it and it's real, we betray everything humanity stands for. We are Deathworlders. Not because we destroy, but because we endure. We survive when others cannot, and we help when others would turn away. The chamber went quiet. Then slowly, the chairwoman of the council nodded. You have authorization, Admiral. Bring them home. Hours later, the fleet began its awakening. Across the solar system, hangars opened like blooming flowers. One by one, the giant ships powered up. The deep vibration of quantum engines filled space, a soundless thunder that could almost be felt in the bones. In orbit, light reflected off steel and armor as drones repaired hull plating and loaded supplies. The fleet wasn't built only for war. It was designed for endurance, carrying research pods, medbays, and long-range habitats. Inside the flagship Vigilant, Admiral Voss walked through the control deck. He paused by a holographic projection of the galaxy, showing the long route toward the Krill Expanse. How long to reach them? He asked. Navigator Kira 10 answered. At full drift, 12 standard days. But the region is unstable. We may have to drop out of hyperspace several times. Understood, Voss said. We'll go as far as we must. He looked out the main viewport. The stars stretched into lines of light as the fleet prepared to jump. Open a channel to all ships, he ordered. A calm voice echoed through every deck of the fleet. This is Admiral Terran Voss. We have received a call from beyond the edge of known space. A Terran vessel and a lost people are in need. We are not going to conquer. We are going to protect. Let the galaxy remember that the Deathworlders stand for life. Across every ship, crews saluted, their faces steady but proud. Humanity was moving again. As the fleet vanished into hyperspace, the galaxy noticed. Across distant star systems, other species received the energy readings. The Valarn Consortium, known for their trade routes, watched nervously. The Keth Union, once enemies of humanity, analyzed the fleet's trajectory in silence. Even the Nyran scholars whispered among themselves, recalling stories of the old Deathworlder wars. For centuries, the galaxy had grown used to a quiet Earth. Now that quiet was broken. Some were afraid. Others were hopeful. But all agreed on one thing. When the Deathworlders moved, history changed. Meanwhile, in the Krill expanse, the Horizon crew worked to stabilize their systems after the shockwave. The planet trembled less now, but strange energies still lingered beneath the surface. Alara stood at the edge of a cliff, watching the sky through a haze of dust. The Alenth beside her looked both amazed and fearful. "You freed our voices," one said softly, "but you also awakened our past." Alara nodded. "I know, but help is coming. I've sent the signal. My people will hear it." The Alenth looked at her with quiet awe. "Your people? They are the Deathworlders, yes? The ones who walk unbroken through fire?" Alara smiled faintly. "That's what some call us, but I like to think we just don't give up." In the distance, the remains of the underground generator still glowed faintly. Strange lights flickered beneath the surface like the heartbeat of something sleeping. 12 days later, space near the Krill expanse rippled like water. One by one, enormous shapes emerged, the Deathworlder fleet shining with silver light. The Vigilant took point, its hull glowing blue with atmospheric shields. On the horizon, alarms sounded. Aaron ran to Alara's side, his eyes wide. "Commander, multiple large contacts incoming, wait." Identification codes matched Terran fleet signatures. Alara's heart lifted. They came. She opened a channel. "This is Commander Alara Holt of the Horizon." "To any Terran vessel in range, and it's good to see you." The reply came almost instantly, firm and calm. "Horizon, this is Admiral Voss of the Vigilant. Hold position. We have you on scanners. The fleet is here." Relief swept through the Horizon's crew. For the first time since entering the expanse, they felt safe. But their comfort lasted only a moment. "Admiral," said Kira 10 from the Vigilance bridge, detecting multiple energy sources on the far side of the system. "They match no known design. They're watching us." Voss studied the readings quietly. So the signal reached more than just us. He turned toward the holographic map showing the dying planet below. "Begin planetary approach. Keep defensive formations but no aggressive moves. We are here to help, not to threaten." The fleet moved into orbit, forming a bright ring above the broken world. From the surface, the Alenth gazed up, seeing for the first time in their history a sky filled with shining human ships, guardians of light in the endless dark. Alara stood among them, awe in her eyes. "Welcome home," she whispered softly, even though home was far away. As the Deathworlder fleet stabilized orbit, faint signals echoed through the void, whispers from distant, unseen watchers. In places beyond known space, old powers stirred, curious and uneasy. The return of the Deathworlders had begun to change the balance of the galaxy. And somewhere, deep beneath the ruined world, the ancient machines pulsed again, slow and deliberate, as if taking notice of the light now shining above them. The story of the Horizon was no longer a secret. The galaxy had heard the call. The Krill expanse was quiet, almost peaceful from orbit. The Deathworlder fleet formed a glowing circle above the dying planet, each ship a shining sentinel against the dark void. Below, the Alenth gathered on the surface, gazing up at the protective armada, hope and wonder reflected in their pale blue eyes. Commander Alara Holt stood on the deck of the Horizon, watching the formations of the Terran ships. Her heart was lifted by the sight, but a sense of unease lingered. Something beneath the planet's surface was stirring. Lieutenant Aaron Kyle approached, pointing at the scanning console. "Commander, sensors are picking up unusual energy spikes. They're not random. Something or someone that was active down there." Alara nodded. "The generator we shut down earlier. It wasn't the only thing, I feel it. Something else is awake." The Alenth elder standing beside her spoke in his soft melodic voice. "The Watchers have been patient. You have awakened them." Alara turned to him. "Who are they?" The elder's glowing eyes reflected fear and memory. Long ago, when the Vorkal Dominion destroyed our cities, they left guardians, machines and sentinels buried deep. They were designed to respond to any attempt to escape or send a signal. Until now, they slept. Now, they know we are alive. Aaron's eyes widened. "We triggered them by freeing your signal?" "Yes," the elder admitted. "But without your courage, we would still be trapped. We have no choice but to face them." The first signs of the hidden enemy appeared as faint blips in the outer orbit of the planet, sleek objects moving without sound, invisible until their energy fields flared briefly. The scanners recognized patterns similar to the Vorkal's ancient designs, though modified and far older than the crew could understand. "Commander," said Navigator Lyra Chen, They're not attacking yet. They're watching, studying our fleet, but there's an intelligence behind them. They know what we are capable of. Ilara felt a chill. They're testing us. But why not strike immediately? Perhaps, the elder whispered, they remember the old ways. They do not strike without reason. They will give you a chance. But the moment you show weakness, they will act. The Horizon and the Deathworlder fleet moved closer to the planet to begin the evacuation of the Alanth. Shuttles carried the first groups to orbit, their light reflecting off the silver hulls of the fleet. The Alanth marveled at the human ships, asking questions in soft voices about how humans could build such massive vessels. Ilara answered each question with care. We build to last. We protect what we care for. That is what makes us strong. Meanwhile, beneath the surface, the ancient structures pulsed with energy. Lines of light spread across the ruins, connecting massive crystal towers. The hidden sentinels began to awaken fully, sensors focusing on the fleet above. Commander Holt, Aaron said nervously. Their energy readings are increasing. They're preparing to... something. I'm not sure what, Ilara nodded. Keep calm. We're not here to fight them unless necessary. We're here to protect and evacuate. Suddenly, the monitors lit up with hundreds of fast-moving objects emerging from hidden tunnels in the planet's crust. They were small at first, like shards of glass, but quickly multiplied. Automated drones built for defense and control. The Elder's voice trembled. The Watchers. The Vorkal left them to enforce their will. They are precise. They will not stop until they finish their task. Ilara raised her hand. Everyone, shields up. Defensive formations. No aggressive actions. Just hold them at bay while we complete the evacuation. Across the orbital scanners, the fleet formed a protective barrier around the shuttles. Each Deathworlder ship emitted a soft blue light, a field of energy that could deflect attacks without causing destruction. The first drones approached. Their sensors scanned the fleet, but as they detected the human defensive fields, they slowed, analyzing. Instead of firing, they circled the perimeter as if deciding the next move. Hours passed in tense silence. The Alanth continued boarding the shuttles, their hope growing with each group safely lifted into orbit. Commander, Lyra said, these sentinels are unlike anything we've faced before. They respond to energy fields, movement, even thought patterns to some degree. If we panic, they could misinterpret our actions. Ilara looked at the monitors. Hundreds of glimmering drones hovered in perfect formation, their shapes like crystals reflected in the stormy light of the planet below. Then we don't panic. We move carefully, slowly. They are ancient, but they are not invincible. They cannot harm life if we do not provoke them. The Elder stepped closer. You speak wisely, Commander. Humans have always been different. When others flee in fear, you stand. That is why you are here, not just to save us, but to show that courage can awaken hope. Ilara's heart lifted. We will finish this. I promise. As the evacuation neared completion, the Watchers made their decision. One massive object, larger than any other, emerged from the deepest part of the planet. Its surface was dark crystal, pulsing faintly, and lines of energy ran across its hull like veins. It hovered above the ruins, scanning the human fleet and shuttles with what seemed like curiosity. Aaron swallowed hard. That's enormous. How do we even hold a formation against something that size? Ilara steadied herself. We don't fight unless we have to. Its presence is a warning. We respect it, and we move. The shuttles continued lifting the last Alanth into orbit. The massive crystal figure remained still, its energy fields humming softly. Then, unexpectedly, the energy spread outward, not to attack, but to light the planet. Cracks in the ground glowed. Lines across ruins ignited in brilliant patterns. It was as if the Watchers were displaying themselves, showing the humans and Alanth the history and scale of the world that had been lost. The fleet and Horizon crew watched silently, awestruck. It's not hostility, whispered the Elder. It is remembrance. They remember all that has happened here, and they are judging the new arrivals. Ilara nodded, understanding dawning. We have shown courage and compassion. That is enough to earn trust. For the first time, the planet seemed calmer. The drones hovered still, their energy readings steady but non-threatening. The shuttles lifted the last of the Alanth safely to orbit. On the horizon, Ilara turned to Aaron. Prepare for the return flight. We have their people now. Let's get them to safety. But as the crew celebrated the completion of the evacuation, Subtle signals flickered across the scanners. Faint, rhythmic pulses emanating from deep space beyond the expanse. They weren't part of the planet's energy or the Watchers. They were distant but deliberate. Lyra frowned. "Commander, we're picking up subspace signatures from beyond the expanse. They're not human. They're old, and they're moving toward us." Ilara's gaze hardened. "Then our mission isn't over. The galaxy beyond this system is aware of what we have done. Whatever's out there, it knows we have awakened something." The Elder's voice trembled with awe. "Humans, your courage and resolve shine across the void. You are unlike any other. The Watchers approve, but they warn. The universe is not empty. There are eyes that have waited for centuries to see who would answer the call." The fleet prepared for departure, shuttles returning the Alenth to the Vigilant and other carriers. The Watchers remained hovering silently above the planet, as if guarding it until it could be reclaimed or studied safely. Ilara watched them one last time, understanding that the expanse would always remain mysterious. But humanity's presence had changed its course. In orbit, Admiral Voss's voice came through the comms. "Commander Holt, all Alenth accounted for?" "Yes, sir." "Everyone is safe," Ilara replied. "Good, then return to the fleet. We have more work ahead. The Krill expanse is only the beginning." Ilara nodded. "Understood." She looked down at the planet one final time. The Watchers pulsed gently, like the heartbeat of history itself. The drones remained, but their energy was calm, controlled. Humanity had arrived not as conquerors, but as guardians. And beyond the expanse, something ancient had noticed. Something patient. Something that would watch the humans carefully, waiting to see what they would do next. The Horizon and the Deathworlder fleet left orbit, moving steadily back toward known space, carrying the Alenth and hope for the first time in centuries. The galaxy, silent for so long, was beginning to wake. The Krill expanse faded behind the fleet like a shadow disappearing into the void. The Horizon led the way, carrying the last of the Alenth to safety aboard the massive carriers of the Deathworlder fleet. Stars stretched into long lines as the ships traveled at quantum drift speed, leaving the broken planet behind. Commander Ilara Holt stood on the bridge of the Horizon, her eyes scanning the monitors. The Alenth were settling in, curious and cautious, but alive for the first time in centuries. Relief washed over her. Lieutenant Aaron Kale joined her quietly. "It's strange," he said softly. "We came to rescue them, but I feel like we've also changed something. Far bigger than ourselves," Ilara nodded. "We've awakened hope. That matters as much as anything else." The fleet continued through the expanse, alert for any sign of the ancient forces beyond the system. Sensors picked up distant subspace signals, faint pulses that were deliberate, intelligent, but still far away. Admiral Terran Voss had warned them. The galaxy had noticed. Humanity's actions would not go unseen. On the bridge of the Vigilant, Voss addressed the fleet. "We've done what we came to do. The Alenth are safe. The Watchers below have chosen not to strike. But we must remain vigilant. There are ancient eyes in the void. Our presence has been noted. We must be ready for what comes next." Across the fleet, crews nodded. The Deathworlders were warriors, explorers, and protectors, and they understood that courage sometimes meant standing in the unknown. Below, the Alenth slowly adapted to life aboard the ships. The Elder watched the human crew with quiet admiration. "Your people, you are remarkable," he said to Ilara. "We have lived in fear for centuries. You gave us freedom, and more than freedom, you gave us hope." Ilara smiled. "It is what we do. We survive, yes, but we do not abandon life that calls for help. That is the true measure of strength." The Alenth shared stories of their lost cities, their culture, and their knowledge of the galaxy. They spoke of technology and histories that had been buried, warning the humans of dangers that had been sealed away by their oppressors. Aaron leaned close to Ilara. "Commander, if the Vorkal left Watchers and Sentinels and something else noticed us, could there be more threats out there waiting?" Ilara's gaze turned to the stars. "Yes, but we are not afraid. Humanity has never been afraid of the unknown. That is why we endure. That is why we survive. That is why we protect." Days passed as the fleet traveled toward Terran space. The Alenth began to trust their new companions. Children of the Alenth, once hidden and afraid, played in the safe sections of the carriers. Scientists and engineers worked together, sharing knowledge and learning from one another. On the bridge of the horizon, Ilara observed this quietly. For centuries, the Alenth had known only fear, hiding beneath the ruins of their world. Now, surrounded by humans, they were experiencing life anew, safe, free, and protected. A soft alarm sounded on the horizon. Lyra Chen, monitoring the sensors, turned to Ilara. "Commander?" "Energy readings ahead. Nothing like before, but something is moving in the expanse." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Show me." The monitors displayed distant streaks of energy, small at first but steadily multiplying. They moved cautiously, keeping distance from the fleet as if observing and measuring. The elder stepped forward, his voice calm but urgent. "The galaxy is awake. What you have done has sent ripples across the void. Others will come, to see if the courage of humans matches the courage they have heard of in stories." Ilara took a deep breath. "Then we will be ready. Always ready. That is what it means to be Deathworlders." The fleet entered known space without incident, though the tension remained high. Humans in Terran colonies and orbital stations watched as the massive ships returned, carrying survivors from a lost world. Reports were sent, stories were shared, and hope spread across the colonies. Admiral Voss addressed the crews over a secure channel. "We have proven that humanity answers the call. We have shown that courage, endurance, and compassion define us. The galaxy has noticed. We have sent a message not only to our friends but to all who watch. When life calls for help, the Deathworlders respond." Cheers echoed through the decks of every ship. The mission had been a success, and yet the knowledge of what lay beyond the expanse remained. In orbit above Earth, the Horizon docked with the fleet's largest carrier. Ilara watched as the Alenth began to disembark, preparing to settle in temporary habitats and research facilities. One of the young Alenth children approached her, holding a small crystal that glowed faintly in the dim light. "For you," the child said simply. Ilara took it carefully. The crystal vibrated softly, warm to the touch. "Thank you," she whispered. "It will remind me of your world and of the courage you showed." The elder approached her as well. "Commander Holt, you have not only saved lives but restored faith. You and your people have reminded us that the universe is not only dark and dangerous but also full of hope." Ilara smiled. "That is what we live for, and now your people will live too." Even as the celebrations continued, the fleet remained alert. In the distance, beyond known space, sensors detected slow-moving vessels, enormous and silent, their origins unknown. "Commander," Aaron said softly. The Watchers weren't the only ones paying attention. "The galaxy, it's watching us now." Ilara placed her hand on the console, her voice steady. "Let them watch. We are not here to hide. We are here to endure, to protect, and to inspire. We will meet whatever comes together with courage and strength." The fleet's sensors continued to scan the void. They detected distant movements, signals, energy spikes, and shadows across the stars. But the crew remained unshaken. Humans had always faced the unknown, and this time was no different. The Alenth, now safe in orbit, looked down at their ruined planet one last time. The Watchers remained hovering silently, guardians of the history that had been nearly lost. But humanity had arrived. The past would no longer define them. In the fleet, Ilara stood with Admiral Voss. "We have done what we came to do. The Alenth are safe. The galaxy knows we are here, and we've sent a message stronger than any signal." Voss nodded. "Yes, the message is clear. Humanity answers the call. We protect life, we endure. We do not abandon those in need. That is our promise." Ilara looked out at the stars. "Then let the galaxy remember it. Let the Watchers and all who hide in darkness see it. We will stand. Always." As the horizon and the fleet turned toward home, the stars seemed brighter, filled with possibility. The galaxy was vast, filled with mysteries. But humanity had carved its place, and not as conquerors, but as guardians, explorers, and protectors. Somewhere deep beyond the expanse, distant eyes had watched the courage of humans. They had seen hope triumph over fear. They had seen life saved by will and determination. And though the Watchers and the hidden powers of the galaxy remained, they would now remember. When the call comes, the Deathworlders answer. In the ships of the fleet, crews shared stories of courage, of unity, of survival against impossible odds. In the hearts of the Alenth, hope had been reborn. And in the stars, the universe itself seemed to pause, Recognizing that humanity, the Deathworlders, had proven once more that life could endure, and that the call for help would never go unanswered. The Krill expanse would never be the same. The galaxy had heard the call. The Deathworlders had answered, and the promise of humanity, courage, endurance, and protection would echo across the stars for generations to come.